بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear sisters, my dear daughters, welcome back to a new episode of the Seerah, the biography of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, to live with this blessed journey of prophethood and of da'wah by Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, and how much he spent a lot of time I spent a lot of time to just one second, something to be. I ask you to mute your phone, please. All of you to mute your phones. So again, we are speaking that the blessed journey of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, and how he has difficulty in every day he's facing, and during the after the prophethood, and in inviting others to Islam, and the opposition to him by the disbelievers in Quraysh. And we mentioned last time about the opposition happened to him, that there was a trial to Abu Talib, to his uncle, to persuade him to give them Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and in return will give them they will give Abu Talib one of their young adults, good looking boy to raise for them, and it was an idiot attempt actually, and of course failed. We mentioned also that the opposition was very aggressive to the Muslims at that time, to the degree that they pushed to the migration to Al-Habasha. And we mentioned Al-Habasha is the Ethiopia now, and how the migration was on two stages, the first stage, and then after that the second stage. This all what we mentioned last time today, and we stopped at the failing attempts, as we mentioned about making people making a change of Prophet Muhammad for another one by the disbelievers. So what happened after that? Here, what happened that the persecution hugely intensified after these negotiations failed. We mentioned that there was two trials at the last time about the negotiations in a trial to convince Prophet Muhammad to leave his message, or to convince his uncle to give Muhammad to the disbelievers for والسلام, for killing him, and how both attempts were failed, end by failure. So this made the disbelievers to resorted back to their old methods of torturing and of punishment of the Muslim slaves they have at that time, or the new Muslims in general, and start the idea of killing the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. At that time, they realized that the pacing of the Prophet and the Islam is definitely having their straight pathway, and it is every day new Muslims embrace Islam, and it's very difficult to control. They realize that they may start to think about killing the Prophet himself. On the contrary, to their belief, subhanallah, and their conspiracy are always doing, these violence allowed Islam to stand out, resulting in the conversion of two strong and mighty heroes at that time, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib, the a uncle of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. When we come, please mute your phones, please. Please mute your phones.
Assalamu alaikum.
The newcomers, kindly mute your phone. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Aisha, mute your phone, please.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we are speaking about the conversion of Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib radiallahu anhu to Islam, how he converted to Islam. It was said that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was seated on the hill rock of Safa when Abu Jahl passed by him. Abu Jahl, as we mentioned before, he was one of the leaders of the disbelievers at that time in Mecca. And unchecked and noting the Prophet's silence, he picked up a rock and cracked the Prophet's holy head open. A slave girl told Hamza about the incident. Enraged and offended, he rushed to Abu Jahl's company and violently struck his head with his bow and shouting rather unintentionally, "You have abusing Muhammad, peace be upon him. I too follow his religion and profess what he preaches." Actually, at the beginning, when Hamza radiallahu anhu mentioned these words, he was not a believer at that time. He was, because he's loving Prophet Muhammad so much, and he had the very angry because of what happened, and he just said these words on his tongue that he was not at that time believing Islam. And when he returned back to his home, he started to think of why he just pushed to say these words. He's still a disbeliever, and by 2 or 3 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expanded his chest to Islam, and he converted really by his heart to Islam and went to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And the Muslims, all the Muslims were very happy by the Islam, by the conversion to Islam of Hamza radiallahu anhu, because Hamza was a very strong man and well known in Quraysh by his strength, to the degree that he used to go for hunting lions. He was hunting lions, not deers or sheep or something like this. No, he used to hunt lions. And during the battles, the Sahaba is describing him that he has 2 swords, not 1, 2 swords. He was during the battles of Badr and of Uhud, where he martyred in Uhud, radiallahu anhu, he used to fight the disbeliever by the 2 hands at the same time. Imagine that he has the 2 hands, both of them dominant. He's not right dominant or left dominant. He was so strong to the degree that he's fighting by his 2 hands in the battle. That's why it was a great victory for the Islam, for the Muslims, and for the Prophet ﷺ at that time to have him with the Muslims, because as we mentioned, the Muslims, most of the people entered the Islam at the beginning were the poor and the slaves, or those who are complaining from injustice. So they were weak, and that's why the disbelievers were strong and they tortured and punished them. But for the start of Hamza became to convert to Islam, it as we mean, it is reversed the situation. And this is from Allah mercy, of course. And another good news, that another very strong and mighty man, Umar ibn al-Khattab. It was said that one day Umar heard the Prophet recite a few verses of Quran while praying, which touched his heart. Yet he persisted against Islam still. Enraged and excited, he rushed with a sword to look for and kill Prophet Muhammad. One day he just came out of his home, and with his sword opened and being in his hand, he wanted to go for Prophet's home to kill him. Until he stopped in the street, he stopped by one of the Muslims. His name is Nu'aym. ibn Abdullah, who said, upon knowing his intent, Umar, I'm sure your soul has deceived you. Do you think that Banu Abdu Manaf would let you walk on the earth if you slay Muhammad, peace be upon him? Why don't you take care of your own family first and set them right? Actually, this intelligent and very smart companion tried to divert the attention of Umar radiallahu anhu from going to attack Prophet Muhammad to his family. His family at that time, he meant his sister. Umar has a sister. Her name was Fatima bint al-Khattab, and her husband. Her husband was his name was Zaid. Sa'id, and they supposed to convert to Islam, and they were secretly conceal this conversion. So when the Umar radiallahu anhu being told by this companion about his sister, he was so angry again, and he went to his sister's house, whom she and her husband were reciting verses of Surah Taha. He swore against them, rushed to beat her husband, yet she rescued him, and her face started to bleed. He beated her husband and beated her, and when he saw the blood coming from her mouth, he started to feel that something wrong happened. This is his sister, his beloved sister. How he could bring the blood from her mouth? Then he told her, give me what you are reading. I want to read. So at that time, she ordered him, look at his sister. She's not afraid of him. Although that he is a strong man, as we mentioned, she ordered him to wash himself and read the leaf that had the verse. He then headed to he read actually the verses of ayat, the beginning of Surah Taha, and he was very impressed, and subhanallah, Allah expanded his chest to Islam at that time, and he went to meet Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, carrying still his sword with him. Hamza was there, and he said, proactively responded to him, let him in. He told the Sahaba, let him in. As a friend, he is welcome. As an enemy or foe, he will have his head cut off with his own sword. See how much he's challenging Omar. But actually, Omar requested the conversion, and the Muslims shouted happily, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. His conversion, as we mentioned, was mainly due to the Prophet's infamous supplications. There was a usual supplication mentioned by the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, mentioning, oh Allah, give strength to Islam, especially through either of two men you love more, Umar ibn al-Khattab or Amr ibn Hisham. So, and by the way, Amr ibn Hisham is Abu Jahl that we mentioned about it, that the one who do the harms to the Prophet Muhammad. Subhanallah. So Allah, he replied, and he having the response to the, responded to the dua of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam with Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now we come to another type of aggressiveness against Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Utayba ibn Abi Lahab. We remember Abi Lahab is the uncle, another uncle of Prophet Muhammad, and he's a disbeliever. And this uncle, we mentioned that Surah Al-Masad was revealed to describe him and his wife, that both of them will be in the hellfire. Subhanallah, yani one uncle is converted to Islam. Actually, Prophet Muhammad has around nine uncles. Two of them only became Muslim, Hamza and Al-Abbas, and the rest was disbeliever, and some of them died even before Islam, but only Al-Abbas and Hamza were Muslims. The rest, even Abu Talib, the one who raised him and spent and support him in most of the da'wah years in Mecca, when he died, he was not Muslim. So the son of Abi Lahab once approached the Prophet, peace be upon him, and most defiantly and presently shouted at him, I don't believe in any of the Quran, he mentioned, and then started to deal aggressively with the Prophet and laid violent hands on him, tore his shirt and spat on his face, but his saliva missed the holy face of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Thereupon here the Prophet invokes Allah's wrath on Utaybah and supplicated, "O Allah, set one of your dogs on him," and responded positively Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as while Utaybah and his friends were in Zarqa, this is a place near Mecca, a lion approached them like lightning and snatching Utaybah head and crushing his head. So this was the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to this disbeliever, that Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam make or invocate dua on him. Again, we still have the aggressiveness is occurring. One morning, Abu Jahl, this is the one we mentioned about his name, Amr ibn Hisham. But the Prophet Muhammad gave him the title of Abu Jahl. He was having the title of Abul Hakam. Abul Hakam means the father of wisdom. So Abu Jahl, this is a title given by the Prophet to him, which means the father of ignorance. So this was the name to him, the title given by Prophet, and the Muslim used to call him like that, Abu Jahl, or the father of ignorance. One morning, Abu Jahl waited for Prophet to offer his prayer while Quraysh were in rooms waiting for the news. He wanted to beat him again. As Abu Jahl approached the Prophet carrying a big rock on his back, suddenly and slowly retreats back to the clan. When asked why, he described, "When I approached, a male camel, unusual in figure with fearful canines, intercepted and almost devoured me." This was a protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his prophet, that when Abu Jahl approached the prophet to throw him with this large stone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Abu Jahl see this unusual camel, and the prophet being told that and reported that it was Jibril, the angel. Jibril, peace be upon him, if Abu Jahl had approached closer, he would have killed him. If he was approached closer, he was. This is give us an idea about the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his protection to his prophet. Now again, another trial of negotiations coming back, and when Quraysh realized that their torturing methods were utterly failing before and after the conversion of Umar and Hamza, they had to shift to a more diplomatic approach in an attempt to halt the spreading of da'wah. The main issue for the disbelievers is the spreading of da'wah. They don't want the people to know about Islam. They don't want the people to be Muslims. And we mentioned that before. This is against their trading and against their plans, because actually, as we mentioned before, the society was consisting of a very rich people in the social class and the very poor people. There was slavery at that time. The roles of Islam coming by justice itself, justice per se, is making them annoying, is annoying them, because they are living on the oppression of others, oppression of their slaves, oppression of their women. Oppression was the baseline, and also drinking wines, also making the dealing with the riba and with usury. All these things, they used to live many years on them. So for them, Islam is a revolution on all these things. So it was not easy at all to accept this da'wah to be spread. That's why we've been now more than 3 lessons or 4 even episodes. As you are seeing, we are saying how many trials they are doing to stop the da'wah, either by negotiations, either by a direct attack, either by, and actually what I want to say to you, when we are taking these lessons about the story of Prophet Muhammad to feel how much Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam bear. He bore so much. He was forbearing for all these actions. Many hard things. If you can imagine his life, the 13 years in Mecca during his da'wah to Islam after the prophethood, how he suffered every day. This is maybe we are telling you the most, or what being known by us, authenticated about the seerah, but we are not covering the 13 years, of course. The seerah is covering the most prominent events happened, but you can imagine 13 years. Every year is 365 days. Every day there is 24 hours. Prophet is suffering from the trying to make the da'wah, and there is an opposition. He's trying to go for the da'wah and there is opposition. So this is not easy. This is not easy at all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, most of the Meccan surahs came in revealed to him during these 13 years to make him to steadfast him and to keep him on the right path. There is many ayat in your Quran, if you can go for how much it tell him, don't be sad, don't lose your decisive issues, don't lose your strength. This is what happened to the previous messengers before you. You have to be strong. It's okay. You are innaka ala al-haq. You are on the truth. And we mentioned yesterday what means by the truth and what the truth means to all of us. So there were always the ayat and the verse come to give Prophet Muhammad a push, to push him to can attack and to can stand in front of all this opposition. So this another trial came when Quraysh realized that their torturing method is not bringing any positive results with them. The masters of Quraysh gathered together in order to make like a treaty or agreement with the Prophet into leaving his faith by offering him their perishing earthly wealth. So at that time, they offered him, if you want to gather for you money, we'll gather for you money. If you want the most beautiful woman, we're going to make you marry the most beautiful woman in Mecca. If you want to be the king of the Mecca or leader of the Mecca, we will make you the king on us or our king. But just leave this message. Now see how much they became very weak. They became in vain. They couldn't do what more. So they tried to bribe him by giving him the things that anyone in the looking for the happiness in the dunya or in life, he could have it. The best woman to marry, the beautiful woman to marry, and authority and money. All these are the people running. Most of the people are running after these things in the life. So at that time, the Prophet ﷺ, he responded by Surah Fussilat, the first 5 ayat of Surah Fussilat, when he said, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, Hamim. This is a revelation from the all-merciful, the most merciful, a book whose verses have been detailed, an Arabic Quran, for a people who know, as a giver of good tidings and warner, but most of them turn away. So they do not hear, and they say, our hearts are within coverings from that to which you invite us, and in your ears is deafness, and between us and you is a partition. So work indeed, we are working. So the answer here of Prophet Muhammad is coming from the Quran that being revealed to him in order to tell these ayat about his mission. He started with mentioning beautiful names of Allah, and then he told him, you are as he been having this ayat Quran from Allah in Arabic language, which means that you cannot challenge this Quran although you are skilled and talented in Arabic language. His mission is a giver of good tidings for the believers and a warner from the hellfire for the disbelievers. And instead, the disbelievers turned away and said that their hearts are covered and they cannot understand what the Prophet said. So, and there is a partition between them and what you are saying to them, Ya Muhammad. So let them do what they want and you do what being ordered from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, they left without having any result. Also that they thought that they can tempt Prophet Muhammad may be tempted by the offer, the generous offer. Then actually after that they start to have an economic and a social way of boycott, which was called the Boycott Treaty. As a result of their consistent failures, Quraysh and other clans decided to sign a treaty or a pact against the clans of Abd Manaf and Abd al-Muttalib. By the way, Abd Manaf and Abd al-Muttalib, they are the tribes of the Prophet. Yani it means his relatives, yani their family. And by the way, they were not Muslim, all of them. Yani all of them were not Muslim, but just as a way of punishment for the tribes of the Prophet, even if they are not Muslims, they entered in their treaty. See how much he's been attacked. They are attacking his relatives in order to make his relative just say we are not supporting him. Let him go away from us. But subhanallah, they didn't say that in the seerah. They didn't, in the biography, they were not mentioned that his tribes did betray him or did they left him alone. Although that they were non-Muslims, but although they are not Muslims, but they didn't betray the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. What was the treaty said? It's points number from the points of the treaty: no business dealing with them. No business between Quraysh, all the tribes of Quraysh and those two tribes, Abd Manaf and Abd al-Muttalib. Any sort of intermarriage, no social relations, visits, and even verbal contacts with Muhammad and his supporters would discontinue until the Prophet, peace be upon him, given up to them to be killed. See, they want to kill him. And this is being mentioned frankly. Abu Talib wisely led the clans into a valley of the outskirts of Mecca. He took, of course, at that time, the leader of those two tribes, Abd Manaf and Abd al-Muttalib, was Abu Talib, his uncle, and he took them to a valley. And this valley, it took the name of Abu Talib. It's called the Valley of Abu Talib. And this confinement lasted for approximately 3 years. 3 years, it was very difficult. Boycott, there was no food because they stopped having any type of trading with those two tribes and preventing them from having any contact with Quraysh. So they lost everything. They lost their homes, they lost their money, they even cannot have any food, to the degree that they was pushed to eat from the leaves of the trees. The leaves of the trees, they used to eat the leaves because there was no other food. The babies were crying during night because there was no enough food for the babies. And many of the Muslims after that were sick and others died, and as we're going to have. And this is for 3 years. And moreover, any trial to have food delivered to them was being suspended and being taken by Quraysh, especially Abu Jahl. He was the leader of this treaty. One of the trials, like it was reported that Hakim ibn Hizam, he is the nephew of Sayyidah Khadija, the nephew of the Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, the wife of the first wife of the Prophet. he used to have to deliver for her weight and food, and he was interrupted by Abu Jahl. And Abu Jahl, Hakim was not able to deliver the weight until al-Bukhturi intervened and allowed him to do so. Again, al-Bukhturi is one of the disbelievers of Mecca, but he was a justice man. He was having he was a wise man, and he said it's not something wise to keep them hungry. At least leave the food to go to them. He mentioned that to Abu Jahl. This situation sums up how harsh, merciless, and unforgiving Quraysh were towards him, Prophet ﷺ, and his companions. You can see how much they were rude and aggressive to the Prophet and to the Muslims, and moreover to his relatives, although that they are not Muslims. Most of the tribes of the Prophet were not Muslims, but just because they are the relatives of the Prophet Muhammad, this is give us a concept of racism, how they applied racism in the ugliest form. And also it raised our attention to how mercy Prophet Muhammad was. Because this has happened, and maybe in less than 15 years after that, he came back to Mecca after migration to Medina. He came back to Mecca in the Al-Fath, Mecca conquest, and he forgave all those people. He forgave all of them. He said, اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Go, you are all set free. We are, as we mentioning, we are more than now 4 lessons are trying to mention some, I'm saying some, and not all the aggressiveness had for Prophet Muhammad and for the Muslims. And we still in this aggressiveness. And we can see how many years it lasted. This is 3 years with us only for boycott. The boycott is just for 3 years. They stayed hungry. They stayed without their homes, without their money. They been like a sting away from Mecca. Then how the pact ended, how this treaty ended. The situation ultimately created disagreement amongst the tribes in Mecca. Therefore, late at night, with motivation and persistence, emerged a group of 5 people. Actually, those people were not Muslim. They were disbelievers, but they are wise. They were wise at that time and discovered it is a shame. It is a shame that they leave their brothers and sisters that lived with them in Mecca many years to have this boycott to happen to them, and this harm happened to them. Their name was Hisham ibn Amr, Zuhair ibn Abi Umayya, Al-Mut'am ibn Adi, and Abu al-Bukhturi, and Zama ibn al-Aswad. The 5 men have an agreement that they should end this treaty. This is a shameful treaty, should be ended. When they reached the gathering of Quraysh, they accused Abu Jahl of lying and packed each other up in the attempt to end the pact. Abu Talib then arrived at the same time and informed them about the Prophet's revelation that the pact was torn by insect, except for what is written in this treaty in the name of Allah. He mentioned to them that Prophet ﷺ been revealed from Allah that actually this treaty was written on a paper, and this paper were held on the Kaaba, inside the Kaaba itself. When Abu Talib came and told them about that, they went quickly to the Kaaba and opened the Kaaba and entered inside. They found the paper written on it. The pact is already being eaten by insect. There is no word present in this except Bismika Allahumma, in the name of Allah. And at this time, this marked the end of the pact, yet it caused the polytheists to turn in disbelief. After that, Prophet Muhammad, of course, he returned back to Mecca, and there was a consequences of these boycott that we're going to have in the next lesson, inshallah. Again, another trial, final trial by them, that Abu Talib organized a meeting between a few Quraysh master and his nephew, alayhi salatu wasalam, attempted to suggest some sort of peaceful coexistence. The Prophet announced to them, if you guarantee me a word, I will guide you to the means by which you will gain sovereignty over both the Arabs and non-Arabs. This is what mentioned by your Prophet. He wants them to say for him a word, one word. If they say this word, he will guarantee for them the sovereignty over both the Arabs and non-Arabs. So the masters of Quraysh responded excitedly, what is that word? I swear by your father that we will surely grant you your wish, followed by 10 times as much. Of course, because they love the wealth, they love the authority, they will be very attentive, and they will be very proactive to know what this word. So the Prophet told him, I want you to testify that there is no God worthy to be worshipped but Allah, and then relieve yourselves of any sort of worship you harbor for any deities other than Allah. And then he started to have a revelation after that for describing this situation, Surah Sad. Of course, they were very angry after Prophet told them this word to testify that there is no God but Allah, and to leave their idols. They were very angry, and they started to say about him how he could ask us to worship just one God, and he is a liar, he's a magician, and they start to call him by the bad names. And here Surah Sad from ayah 1 to 7 is mentioning their reaction after being told this by the Prophet. Sad is an Arabic letter by the Quran containing reminder, but those who disbelieve are in pride and opposition. How many a generation have we destroyed before them? And they called out, but it wasn't a time for escape. And they wonder that there has come to them a warner from among themselves. And the disbelievers say, this is a magician and a liar. Has he made the gods, all the gods, into one God? Verily, this is a curious thing. And the leaders among them went about saying, go on and remain constant to your gods. Verily, this is a thing designed against you. We haven't heard the like of these among the people of these later days. This is nothing but fabrication. This is what exactly being mentioned by them after this meeting, and being exactly described in the first 7 ayat of Surah Sad. And this is another what I want to highlight about when we mentioned that studying the seerah is related to the Quran tafsir, or the Quran explanation, because there is something called asbab and nuzul, or the reasons for revelation. Some ayat in the Quran, there is a reason why it was revealed on Prophet Muhammad. So what we are doing here, that we are studying with the seerah, with the events is happening, the reasons for revelation of specific ayat in the Quran. So when you are reading every time Surah Sad from ayah 1 to ayah 7, you know why it was revealed. Revealed after this conversation happened between the Prophet and the disbelievers. We will stop here. And inshallah, next time we will know what happened after those disbelievers went angry and enraged about what mentioned to them by Prophet Muhammad. And we mentioned that their thoughts now is toward the killing of the Prophet to get rid of him immediately. But inshallah, this is will not happen, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected his Prophet. But there was another trials all the time to attack him and the Muslim. This is what going to have, and next time and more inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.